This time I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, our keynote speaker, Maria Pollieri. Days for Girls is a global movement that prepares and distributes sustainable menstrual health solutions to girls who would otherwise miss school during their cycle. Maria is the Toronto team leader of Days for Girls Society. She manages a team of local Etobicoke-based volunteers consisting of tweens, high schoolers, working moms, corporations, stay-at-homers, and retired individuals who wash, iron, measure, trace, cut, serge, sew, and distribute, and educate, all with the common goal of keeping every girl everywhere in school. Maria also works at Oracle Corporation, where she has been employed in various sales and product strategy roles for the past 14 years. Maria, please, the podium is yours.
Thank you. Light here. Maybe we need to do something to been dormant for too long.
No, just too long.
For those of you that have done presentations, right? It always works until time, and then.
I don't know, they lowered the ceiling and they lowered it.
Oh, you know what? I don't need the internet.
There we go.
So that's good.
We got it, John.
Yeah, coming on. Oh, there we go.
We were worried there, John, that you purchased a lemon.
There you go, you're up.
Good. All right, so thank you, John, for the introduction. So, as you mentioned, my name is Maria, and this is, I think, my third time presenting here at the Freshman Series at Rotary Club of Toronto. So, thank you very much for having me back. It's been a very busy year, 4 Days for Girls, and the purpose of my presentation is really just to update you as to what we've been doing and what we have planned ahead. So as was mentioned, I work full time in technology, and one of the things that actually they tell us, which kind of spills over into my volunteer life, is that when we do PowerPoint presentations, we have to take the words out and just be more Zen-like. So that's like a big thing. So I thought, I'm not going to do a big presentation with lots of words and bullet points, because really all you want to know is kind of the end result. So I have basically photos that I'm going to take you through of the distributions in the field. And as you can imagine, this topic is very culturally taboo in a lot of places. So one of the requirements that we have is that we receive photos back once the kits are distributed. That doesn't happen all of the time. But we do encourage, because the volunteers, this really makes their day. A lot of people, all they want to do is really just see that picture at the very end. So I do have some photos of some of the distributions, and I can talk to some of the other ones as well. So I thought I would start with this one, which is the distribution in Cambodia, and these were distributed to, I think, five schools. As part of the Banyan Tree charitable organization. And so I'm very lucky to have Patty Lee with me, who is a fellow Etobian, thank you, Etobian. And it was very serendipitous how actually I was put in touch with Patty, and she has since become a very good friend. So Patty has committed to distributing and educating 200 girls again this year through that organization. So I don't know, Patty, do you want to say a few words about Banyan Tree at all? Or?
Well, I can just tell you that myself and another lady here in Canada started. Thank you. My voice is so strong, I don't usually need this. Myself and another lady have 5 schools over in Cambodia that we have either built or have put the supplies in, the desks and so on, and we completely support the 5 schools and the 600 students. So we have 16 teachers and librarians. We pay for all of the supplies, the taxes, the we've been working on this since 2011. And we now, as of January, will have wells, toilets, and hand washing stations at all of the schools, and we do toilets for families. So this really fits in so well because we've been trying to make sure that our girls all get to stay in school. So we have been thrilled with the connection with Maria. And so 192 last year. We're going to do another, we hope, 250 Maria this year. And that will be for the village girls as well. So that's what we're up to. And if you want to, you can come to a Taste of the King's Way and buy a scarf hand woven in Cambodia. If we keep the women working, we keep the kids in school. All that money goes back to them too. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Patty. I'm going to get ahead of myself, but I did bring a bag full of kits. As the kits are being sewn by the volunteers, they get dropped off at my house, sometimes suitcases at a time, and sometimes, a handful here, a handful there. So I just grabbed a few if anybody is interested. So I've got a bag here that is going to Patty. She's keeping me honest and keeping track of how many are being, but we did commit to 250 going back to Cambodia. So definitely come by and have a peek if you're interested at all. But so that's basically the size of one kit there. Okay. Anything else we want to say about Cambodia before we move on? Okay, I think that's it for that one. Okay, the next one is Peru.
A sex change.
Peru. And what was interesting about Peru is this distribution happened by way of university students that are part of a program called Solidarity Abroad, I think, and it's through Brock University. So that program runs basically a volunteer, or voluntourism, I think is the term. Is that what it's called it's called a portmanteau, when you take two words and you turn them into one word? So voluntourism. So they send university students on all these different distributions, and so we worked with Brock University, and we sent some kits with the students from Brock to Peru. Okay, the next one is Ecuador, and the lady in the middle there is a brand new high school teacher. And she lives in Hamilton, and she reached out to me, and she is doing spending some teaching time in Ecuador, and so we sent her with about a couple hundred kits as well. And she's lovely. Now, with all of the volunteers that do the distribution, because I guess there's a couple things. The distribution is basically the volunteer act of taking the kit from Toronto abroad, and then there's an education component as well. And so in order to distribute the kits, because once the kits are at the schools, it's not just a matter of handing them out. There's a very important piece of the charity, which is the education component. So the education component is delivered by what we call a Days for Girls Ambassador of Health. And to become an Ambassador of Health, you have to take an online YouTube course. It takes about 3 hours, but it's broken down into chapters. And so it teaches the instructors as to, what to say when they're distributing the kits, because there's a lot of ignorance out there as well. So a piece of it is focused on educating the girls, and then a separate piece for educating the boys as well. And so, so that is one of the requirements, is that everybody has to take an Ambassador of Health training course. And it's available in a few different languages. Sometimes the ambassador is the teacher, as is the case here. Sometimes it's a principal or somebody that's well respected amongst the students within the community as well. So that is a little bit about Ecuador.
Just a quick question. When they are being distributed, are they target distributed to those kids that economically need it, like poor kids, or is it just like any girl that wants it.
Sure. So one of the nice things about running just the Toronto team for Days for Girls is I don't have sort of all that and a lot of overhead because there's about 600 teams across the world. So there is a form request. So if anybody is interested in receiving kits, they have to go to the website and they have to fill out the form request, and then there's a questionnaire. So they have to answer all those questions. And then there's a vetting process that happens so that we know in advance who's requesting and where the kits are going. And just further to that, John, one of the other things that I'm planning for this year is, this is the first time actually where I have excess capacity, because usually there's more people that want kits, right, as opposed to the other way around. So I have a little bit of excess capacity, so I'm going to be distributing kits to some of the disaster relief programs as well. So those are national programs. So in September, there's going to be a contribution to, I think it's the Syrian Refugee Project as well. So so the distributions are all vetted. Okay, the next one. So this is the Philippines, and we don't have Philip here, but Philip has been, Barker, a fellow Rotarian, he's been instrumental in keeping that distribution channel open for me. So every year I drop off some kits with him, and I coordinated with his trips to the Philippines. So he's able to distribute the kits as well. Before I move on, there are a couple other distributions as well that are happening. One is through an organization called Send Seeds to Africa, and they're Toronto-based as well. The lady that founded that organization lives out in the Danforth area, and she has a permanent establishment set up that it's like a garage sale type setup all year long. So she accepts donations from the community for anything from A to Z, and then she sells them for to the marginalized population in Toronto. And then with the proceeds, she basically grows and works with all of the big grocery stores to send seeds to Africa. So she is distributing the kits as well. And it's important for me, because I'm such a grassroots charity, that I really understand kind of every step in the distribution cycle. So up till now, it's all been, individual requests that I've been working with, as opposed to, the big national disaster relief. So I know those are, reputable organizations as well. But it's really important for me to make sure that I know that the kits are in good hands, because there still is this, not malicious, but I think the best word is just ignorance, that there isn't really value in educating girls. Like, oh, it's just a waste of time. And, in some cases, maybe it's just trouble. So it's important that the entire sort of distribution chain be very closely managed, because if the kids do fall into the wrong hands, sometimes they don't make their way. And I've heard, it doesn't ever happen to me, but I have heard of that happening as well. So that is another distribution group as well. I've been working a lot with high school students again this year, so we had a fun time both at ECI and RCI. The interesting thing, so a whole bunch of interesting things. I have lots of photos. I think John was present I think you were present at both events? Yeah, both events. So
we have tons of photos.
Lots of photos there. Yeah. So a couple interesting things. It's true that you really do learn from the youth, right? Like we think, I don't know, at least, I think, I know what's best for my kids, and, and every now and then they kind of surprise me. And so the high school students, I guess two little stories. One, ECI, is they actually have offered to help me with the marketing of the program. So, it's great that, they come out to these events and they, cut and trace and sew and all that, like John mentioned. But, they bring kind of fresh creativity to a topic that's very relevant to their demographic. So I'm going to be working with, get the teacher's name there. Sarah. And so we're going to I'm going to go back on site this year, and we're going to work on some kind of marketing brainstorming, how to get more volunteers involved, how to do better fundraising, right? How to, whatever it is that kids think will help further the cause. So I'm, very proud of those kids, and very welcomed as well. And the other interesting thing at RCI, Ridgeview, was that, so the events cost about $500 roughly per event. And that's just, for the cost of all of the supplies, the fabric and the linen and the drawstring and the notions and the panties and so on. And so I have generous support from Lush Cosmetics, which is a soap manufacturer here in Etobicoke, just down on Jutland. So they supply me with the soap that goes into the distribution kits, and then they also supply me with additional products from their store for fundraising as well. And so I gave roughly the same amount to both ECI and RCI. And RCI actually made double, a little more than double. And the reason that I think that they did that was because I told them, you guys price out, this is a little economics lesson. You guys figure out how much and how you want to raise money with the donated product. And at RCI, what they did was they funded the volunteer table at the cafeteria at lunch with the football team. And so they generated twice as much. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I was telling you, even my 22-year-old daughter, she says, Mom, lots changed, even in 5 years, because 5 years ago, you would never get a football team to stand at a booth and raise money for a topic like this. It's just way too awkward. Anyway, good on them, and they raised double the amount. So I like telling that story because it shows kind of creativity. As far as the summer, so we had a couple programs. One was a student volunteer hours. High school students, they need their volunteer hours. So, with the generous support of the Rotary Club of Toronto West, we were able to fund a work from home program. So there's 200 kids coming back on Labor Day. So some of those are going to go to Patty, and some of them are going to go to another group, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So it was great. I was able to basically work with the student volunteer program coordinator. So I found somebody interested in running that program, and so I just kind of met with her a few times, and then she distributed to the students that were interested in that program. And there was just a little under about 20 people, or 20 students. A lot of them are through the Girl Guides, and through the high school in the community. This is in the Beaches area. So, so she coordinated that program for me, which was great. So she sent all the students home with individual tasks. Some of them even took sewing machines for the summer because I have lots of sewing machines that are idle. So that was one of the programs. The other one I did was just a Wednesday night drop-in. So every Wednesday we've been cutting and sewing and tracing. Nice days in the backyard. But it's been a steady turnout. So I always look forward to Wednesday nights at my house and get to hang out with other like-minded people and do a little bit of good. And then just the last slide. This is one of many, many, many photos that I have of a sewing event. And this is through the Toronto Newcomers Club. And this club is, and I could probably talk for another hour, all the different organizations that I've been working with, the different quilters guilds and sewing and supply stores. But this is a group of ladies that meet once a month. They're self-sustaining now. Right, so kind of got them up and running. So now they meet once a month, and they volunteer their time with Days for Girls. And the Toronto Newcomers Club, which was the group actually that put me in contact with Patty back, I guess, years ago. They're members of a community of people whose spouses, so it doesn't necessarily mean women, it can mean men in the Newcomers Club as well, whose spouses relocate to Canada for work, and then they don't have work permits. So these are all women that from, I think Inez on the right is from Mexico, and Linda, I think her husband's from Egypt and the U.S. That are here in Toronto and unable to work because their husbands are here on work visas. So they so this is just one of many different groups that I work with. So going forward, September is a busy month. I have a meeting up at the Rotary Club in Gravenhurst on September 2nd to talk about and distribute kits for the Rotary Club. I think it's called Wheels for Learning Project. So I think it's a national initiative. I don't know, Patty, do you know much about it?
They're actually mostly in Northern Ontario. It's called the Rotary Wheels for Learning. You may have seen it in, I know it's been in your Rotary magazine before, but what they do is they distribute in Cambodia. And so they have distributed many bikes to our schools, but they distribute all over Cambodia. And in fact, they're helping us with toilets for one of our schools this year. So they're quite a group. But they're from all over. I don't know about national, but certainly Northern Ontario.
There's a few that are flying in to from BC and So this group is So they heard about this program that I've been working with Patty. So they've offered to take additional kits to distribute them to other schools in Cambodia as well. So I'm going to be working with them. So I have a meeting at the Rotary Club Gravenhurst next month on September 7th. Tomorrow, actually, I'm meeting with Jill, what's her name? Dugas. I don't know if you guys know her, but she's very active in the Rotary Club of Etobicoke. So she distributed kits to Jordan Amman, to the Rotary Club in Jordan through her daughter. So she went out of her way to reach out to me, packed up a suitcase for her. She met her daughter in Paris, France, handed off the suitcase, and then the daughter went to Jordan to get the program some exposure in Amman, Jordan as well. So hopefully we're getting photos back from that tomorrow when I see Jill. And she has also just sort of verbally given me the okay to apply for granting because their funding application starts in September for their fiscal year. So lots going on in September. Corporate events on the 12th at the National Days for Girls Conference, which is coming up in Toronto later in September. So the last thing I just wanted to leave you with is I did get a donation from Tetley TV, so I thought a series of gift baskets. So I don't know if you guys are doing the Rotary Youth Impact Awards, but I would like to contribute a gift basket as well to that event. Okay.
Any questions from Maria?
A suggestion, Maria.
Yes.
Right in our own community, Humber College has an excellent public relations and event marketing program. I believe you might want to look into
Reach
in
out
the
to
future.
that. Yeah.
Because a lot of kids coming from university go there and get an extra year of practical experience.
Oh, so they're looking for.
So
yeah.
they might be able to help you out in that whole area since you contact, I guess, the chair of that PR and marketing at Humber. I think the North Campus, but it should be on their website.
Okay, I'll reach out to them. Yeah, that's
Worth a shot.
That's great.
Paul?
Yeah, you have a lot of pictures of kids who are recipients of these kits. Are those pictures published or are they private? Because we're very sensitive in some countries about the identity of people, especially online.
Yeah. I don't publish them anywhere. I mean, they're the pictures that come back from the distributors themselves. So that's good to know.
But they're not appearing uncensored on a website or whatever.
No. And in a lot of cases too, it's even difficult to get photos as well. So yeah.
Well, Maria, to mark your visit with us today, and for your update on Days for Girls, your activities, the club is making a donation in your name to the Rotary Foundation. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, well, not quite yet. I want to call on John Hastings, a member of our Communities Business Committee, for his presentation. On this this past Rotary year, Days for Girls submitted an application for funding for supplies and activities and events, and we're happy to report that, of course, as you know, your application was successful in the order of $2,100. So John Hastings will make a presentation.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Here's a check for, I think, $2,100.
Yes, great.
To help
Thank
you
so much.
in your efforts, and it's great to see a local grass seeds, whatever.
Grassroots,
Grassroots organization, yourself and a few others, sort of stand out and become international. You're having a great impact.
Yeah, we're having fun too, right? And we're doing good.
And we're very glad to help participate and help finance it.
Great.
So we'll see you
Thank
back
you.
here.